Absorption of nutrients. We're going to start looking at how different nutrients are absorbed from the digestive tract, say, into the hepatic portal system. The first of these mechanisms would be active transport. Things like carbohydrates are actively transported into the hepatic portal system, proteins as well. Water-soluble vitamins, some ions, can be actively transported. And just a reminder that active transport does in fact require energy in the form of ATP. So taking a look here, we've got some sugars in the bottom, or carbohydrates, let's say, moving across. We've got some amino acids, some proteins moving across actively. Lipids, however, are transported differently. They have to be broken down and then they have to be reassembled. The process begins when lipids are emulsified by bile. So remember that emulsification simply means that the bile is going to surround the lipids and make them smaller, or if you like this better, it creates more surface area on the lipid. Then lipase that's getting released from the pancreas is going to break that lipid down into fatty acids and monoglycerides. The bile salts and lecithin then surround the monoglycerides and fatty acids, forming something called a micelle. That's able to be transported then into the cells of the wall of the intestines. The fatty acids and monoglycerides then reassemble into a triglyceride, and those triglycerides are packaged into something called a chylomicron. The chylomicron is then exocytosed out of the cell. They then enter that lacteal that was the lymphatic capillary, and eventually they'll be dumped back into the bloodstream somewhere near the heart. So taking a look at this picture, if on the left-hand side we've got a fat globule, a lipid. Do you see it's a really big fat globule in the beginning? And with bile available, it gets emulsified. So that one big fat globule gets broken down into smaller fat globules. Then we're going to actually do some chemical digestion by lipase. When the lipase attaches and does its job, it's going to separate that lipid into fatty acids and monoglycerides. Remember that they get surrounded by the bile salts and lecithin, and they're then going to create a micelle that gets transported into the cell. Once in the cell, those fatty acids and monoglycerides will reassemble into a triglyceride, which will be surrounded or packaged into something called a chylomicron that will ultimately be exported via exocytosis out the posterior side of the cell. That then will be picked up by a lacteal, where again it will be transported back into general circulation somewhere near the heart. Osmosis is another way that we're going to get nutrient from the lumen, let's say, of the digestive tract into the hepatic portal system in this case. Water moves by osmosis. We know that water is going to move to an area where there is high solutes, or in other words, water wants to dilute. And diffusion is another mechanism by which we can get materials to go into the hepatic portal system. Water-soluble vitamins are going to move via diffusion. Some minerals will move this way,